Startup Survival here, and today I'm going to be talking about the Benchmade Griptilian full size. Let me just tell you a little bit of background about why I got this knife, and then I'll get into what I think about it and how it's performed for me. Okay, so back in the fall, I was getting into the swing, let's say, of my channel. I managed to reach 100 videos, which for me was a major milestone, and I decided to reward myself for all the hard work that went into that. So I picked up the Griptilian, and I made that my 100th video, just celebrating with the new knife. You know, there's no better feeling in the world than accomplishment, and I really love being creative. My channel's been a great outlet for that, and I really appreciate all the support. Since that video, my channel's grown a lot, and I've got a lot of new subscribers. One of the subscribers actually, last week when I made my stabbing video, noticed that I had the Griptilian, and you know, the comment was something like, "Oh, you've got a Benchmade?" question mark. And yeah, I do have a Benchmade. I haven't done a review on it. I don't know why. It's not because I don't like the knife, but I guess I've just been carrying it as part of the rotation since the fall. And anyways, thank you for that comment. It prompted me to do a review. So for the last week, I've been carrying this knife solid, using it every day, not heavily because I don't heavily use my knives, just because of what it is I do day to day, but I've used it, you know, through the week for cutting up some cardboard, opening some packages, you know, this and that. So the other thing, so I mean, that's when I bought it and why, but what was the motivation behind it? I'd always wanted to try a Benchmade. I know from like a variety of sources that they're a good company and they make good products. The price held me off for a very long time. It wasn't until I saw a YouTuber named Virtual Vice, this dude from Japan. He's a deer hunter. You know, he really likes fixed blades and convex edges. His videos are, you know, sometimes just him talking for a while, doing some sharpening with those Japanese water stones or some stropping. And yeah, it's just really pleasant to listen to, actually. I'm not like a dedicated follower or anything, but at that time I was just watching some of his videos, and he has this awesome Griptilian video with his exact color combination and everything. I think somebody sent him the knife, but it was pretty cool. He was batoning in his garage, he was chopping wood with it and stuff. It was really impressive. Another thing that I'll mention about Benchmade that I just saw recently is Joe Tedeye, Cody's better half from Dual Survival. He's got this video out, I'm not sure if it's on YouTube or just Facebook where I saw it, but it's about his bug out bag. And he's another dude that I respect a lot, and he put a Benchmade folder in there. So people who know a lot about knives and whose opinions I respect seem to like Benchmade, so I thought it was time to give it a try. So I've been carrying this for about a week now, and I mean, let me just tell you the most important things that came to my mind as I carried it. Number one, I just think it's so easy to use, so smooth. You know, that thumb stud deployment with the axis lock system, it's just the smoothest knife ever. To open and close. I think that I could open and close this knife more times in 1 minute than I could any other knife that I own. I haven't put that to the test, but just watch me for a second here operating this, and I mean, you don't have to use a lot of force at all. You just kind of push it and it flies open. But watch that, and let's compare with Cold Steel American Lawman. Number one, if I use the same amount of force, it doesn't even come open. You know, it might just fly back into the handle. So you got to use some wrist action to get that thing open, and then when you do, you got to push down on this the lock bar there, the triad lock, and you know, it kind of hurts your hand. So I mean, it requires a lot of force to open it, a lot of force to manipulate it, to close it, and it's not a bad lock at all. I love the triad lock, but let's be real, in terms of EDC and just operability, comfort of use, the axis lock, I think, is pretty much the best out there. I was reading online a while ago, I was reading about the Ritter grip, which I don't own obviously, but it looks pretty cool, and I was reading about the axis lock, and they were saying that like one of the things that people seem to like about it is just how intuitive it is. You know, it's kind of like this button on the side of the knife that even non-knife people can figure it out very easily. Add that to the fact that safety-wise, you don't have to have your fingers in front of the blade as it closes, a la liner lock. You know, you got to push it in, and then you got to, you know, have your finger there, which is in danger of getting cut from the blade. So that's not a concern, and other manufacturers have tried to emulate that. You know, sort of the compression lock, I think, is directly competing with the axis lock. Really, it's not as widespread, it's more specialized, but it's got that same sort of ease of use going for it, and plus you don't have to put your fingers in front of the blade. So that's pretty cool. But I gotta say that as I get older, having something that ergonomically is just so smooth to use, that doesn't cramp your hands. Like my hands have gotten beat up, honestly, from using knives just by opening and closing. And, you know, maybe I should stop playing with them as much as I do. But I mean, there's other things too that compete for your hand power, like mouses and whatnot. I work in a job that uses the computer all day, and I mean, you know, this click, 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 you know, carpal tunnel syndrome waiting to happen. So anyways, I think that as I get older, I'm going to appreciate things like this more. It's so easy to use. It doesn't hurt your hands to open or close it. So that's pretty amazing. So the other thing that I'll say that's a highlight of this knife is just how easy it is to carry. You know, this is quite a large knife. It's not as big as the Endura, but, oh, I should explain that, why I have all these knives here. I think that all these knives, size-wise, compete more or less with the Griptilian. Sorry, they're all sort of like medium-size folders that I think most of us go for. You know, maybe like a you know, over a 3-inch blade, less than a 4-inch blade. Like I think these are all sort of like 3.5, 3 1/4, 3 2/3 or something, whatever. They're all sort of like these medium-sized folders. So I think that the size of the Griptilian is pretty awesome. It hits that sweet spot where like most of the really popular folders are. And I mean, I could do a comparison video with any of these knives on the table. Like I think it could match up nicely against the Kershaw Blur, for example. You can't see that. Or, you know, any of these knives really. So it's really easy to carry. It's less than 4 ounces. I think it's, I've got the thing up here on my computer, 3.82 ounces. Wow. And yeah, the blade is just a hair under 3.5 inches. You know, it's awesome. I like the size and I like the weight. It's all good. So some people do not really care for the handle on this knife, and I can understand why. Given the cost involved in the knife, I think that the handle is a little subpar, honestly. If you're over $100 and you're still throwing in an FRN handle, you know, that's a little jacked up in terms of value. But I'll save value for the end because that's something I'm kind of passionate about. What I will say though about the handle is it's not as bad as you think it is, you know. It's strong. I've seen a video of somebody stepping on this knife in between two 2x4s. It held up remarkably well, and they had to like jump on it to actually get it to break. There are steel liners inside, so I feel like it's strong enough. It's not flow-through design. It's got sort of, it's a closed construction, but I've never had an issue with keeping it clean or anything like that. In terms of like traction and whatnot, this little panel on the side I think is pretty good. It does provide traction, and then it's jimped on the top and on the bottom. I watched Nut and Fancy's review actually a couple days ago and on this knife, and he doesn't like the jimping. He's like a jimping nut, right? And I mean, Spyderco obviously pretty much does the best job out there. Yeah, like he's right, you know. Like my finger won't go forward on this jimping. On this one, I can make it go forward. So it's not as strong, but it's okay. You know, I mean, like the whole package when you add it up ergonomically. The handle fills your hand very nicely, no funny finger grooves or anything like that. It's just like a good all-around hand-filling knife. I like the thickness actually. I'll show you it up against the Endura because I think it competes with that pretty strongly. The Endura is definitely thinner, but I mean, like, they're both great knives ergonomically. The thickness, some people like that for the hand filling. I think if you actually have work to do and you're less concerned with, ease of carry, thickness can be a good thing. And yeah, after carrying this knife for a week solid, the pocket clip is awesome too. Like I really like that. I think it's called the Emerson style clip. And yeah, it carries really nicely, tip up, and you don't even notice that you have it. Well, that's a lie. You do notice that you have it, but it's not so much that it like makes you uncomfortable at all. Okay, so let's talk about the lock for 1 second, because I think that that's a huge thing about Benchmade, that axis lock. You know, I guess I already talked about it with regards to deployment, but it's just such a pleasure to use. It's contained, there's an omega spring in there, which I've heard from some people can break on you. I have not had that experience. This knife has been open and closed probably a couple thousand times over the time that I've had it, you know, almost 6 months now. And I've never had an issue with it breaking or anything like that. You can see the spring, which is kind of disconcerting, and you can see how thin it is. I don't know if you're going to be able to see it or not, but yeah, I've seen videos of this knife open before, and you know, that is a thin spring. So I am kind of nervous actually that one day that's going to break, and then just the whole thing is going to be kind of useless. But I've never had that experience yet, and I really like the lock. It's got to be one of my favorites. And of course, it's the only knife that has an axis lock, and it's the only company that makes an axis lock as well, right? So I think that's a reason why a lot of people go with Benchmade, is just for that axis lock, and it's worth it. I really like that. Now let's talk about the blade for 1 second. This is like a hollow ground drop point blade. The overall size of the blade I really like. It's pretty much my perfect blade size, like 3.5 inches. That's awesome. I'm not such a huge fan of the hollow grind, to be honest. It's okay actually, and in some knives when it's a high hollow grind, it's pretty good, but I do prefer the FFG, which most people seem to these days. I guess in terms of advantages of the FFG, it's stronger towards the edge, like it's a little thicker for sure. Some people say the hollow grind is a better slicer. I haven't really had that experience, but it depends on the hollow grind that you have, right? Like on the American Lawman, the hollow grind extends more closely to the spine of the knife. So it's a higher hollow grind, and it's probably a better cutter. I do think that the Benchmade is actually not a bad cutter at all. But like I said, if I have a preference, it's going to be for the FFG. The blade steel 154 cm, it's a mid to upper range steel, I would say, and I think most people agree with that. A lot of people say it competes again with that VG10, and I would also agree with that. You know, I don't really have any data points per se on which one is better in terms of toughness or edge retention. In my experience, they seem to be, you know, pretty competitive. After about a week of use, including, you know, package opening, cardboard cutting, this and that, this knife is no longer shaving sharp, and it won't slice like phone book paper anymore, but it's got a great edge on it still. It's a very serviceable edge. So like anything else, the shaving sharpness goes away really quickly, but it's how long will it maintain a decent edge, and I mean, it's still got one right now. Okay, so yeah, I think that's pretty much all I have to say about like the, you know, the different aspects of the knife. Now let's just talk about value for a second, because I think that that's something that Benchmade kind of is a little bit out to lunch on. So this knife where I am is about $105 with tax, I believe. And that's just for, you know, the satin finish and the whatever color handle you want. They've got like blue and yellow and pink and, you know, black, and I chose orange, obviously. They also make this in a few other configurations, actually. This is the, what is this one? The 551. I think, I'm not going to try to guess the numbers, it's really confusing, but the one with the thumb stud, or sorry, with the spider hole in it, and the sheep's foot blade, I think that's generally the same price. I really like the one with the black sheep's foot and the olive drab handle. I think that's really cool. If I ever end up picking up a mini grip, I'll probably get it in that configuration. And that sheep's foot blade is really nice. It's obviously different than the drop point, but I'm not sad that I got this one. I really like the thumb studs on the grip. I just think they're awesome. So anyways, value, so 105 bucks, right? And I think a lot of people would agree that this competes very directly with the Endura. And where I am, this costs $70 plus tax, so let's say $80. 80 versus 105, so you're paying probably, you know, 30% more to have a Benchmade over a Spyderco for a similar class of knife overall. I think that's probably a video in and of itself, but it definitely illustrates a point. A lot of people would probably prefer the Endura over the grip for various reasons. So yeah, there's a few other Benchmates I would love to try, you know. I really think that the 940 Osborne is pretty awesome. Where I am, that knife costs 200 bucks plus tax. So when all is said and done, 225 bucks maybe. That's a lot of money for S30V in aluminum. You know, like I picked up this Kershaw Knockout the other day. This was 90 bucks with tax, and it's got an aluminum handle, the same kind of aluminum in the Osborne, if I'm not mistaken. The blade steel obviously is not S30V, but it's still a great knife, and you know, not that far off. I really like the 710 McHenry Williams. I think that's a cool knife too. I think it competes really nicely with the military, which I don't have. But yeah, the 710 where I am, I think that's 175 plus tax. Let's call it 190-ish. I really like the 707 sequel as well. That's aluminum with a G10 insert. I'm not going to say it competes with the Blur exactly, but you know, the Blur, this one that I have, cost me 70 bucks, I think. And you know what I'm saying? Like, it's not like that far off in terms of materials. And this is made in the USA as well. And yeah, so anyways, the sequel, I think, is like about 160 where I am, something like that. And there's a few others from Benchmade that I wouldn't mind checking out. But those are probably the top three that I would like to have. Oh, and then a mini grip would be awesome too. I think that competes really closely with a Delica. But again, the price difference is substantial. You know, all the Benchmades are made in the USA. You know, I've been thinking about price lately, and okay, why is it so different? Well, that's made in Japan. This is made in the USA. I don't know why it's cheaper to make it in Japan. Like, I mean, people there seem to make good money, and then you got to pay for transportation. So I don't really see why that costs less than making in the United States, but apparently it does. So yeah, Benchmade. This is my first Benchmade. I'm sure it will not be the last. But for now, it's going to be my only Benchmade because I don't have that kind of money to fork over for a knife. $200, $160, whatever, like that's a lot of money for a folding knife, especially when there's so many other great options available. You know, like look at this, right? The Spyderco Paramilitary 2, which people generally would probably agree is one of the top 5 knives of the last, you know, decade or more. You know, maybe one of the best of all time. It's probably my favorite folder of all time. You can get into this knife for like $130, or actually this one is $125 plus tax, so let's say $140 with tax. It's got a great you know, great lock. The blade steel is S30V. It's made in the United States as well. It's got cool color options, you know, and that's moderately more expensive than the grip, you know. Plastic versus G10, I don't know. So Benchmade is cool for sure, but I'm not sure that I'll be buying more in the near future. Absolutely love this knife. If you don't own a grip or a mini grip and you've thought about it and you know it's that thought's not going away, then just pick one up. You won't be sorry. That's what happened to me. I held it a few times, played with it a few times at the knife store, walked away, came home, made a rant video against Benchmade, and you know, sooner or later I gave it a try and I'm happy I did. That's pretty much it. Thanks for watching.